Greetings to our friends and listeners of these devotions. My name is Jerry Ogles, and I am a minister in the Anglican Orthodox Church. I am going to read to you today from my book entitled Contemplations on the Ways of the Lord, just recently published and available through our national headquarters. The title of the story or devotion that I'm going to read today is The Old Tree and the Mule. You probably noticed that the hymn that was heard, the instrumental portion of Rock of Ages, is a beautiful hymn that talks about a great rock, a rock of our salvation. And we know that that rock is Christ. And we know also that mercy trumps judgment. Mercy trumps law. In the book of Exodus, we read that there are two mountains prominently identified as mountains of God or mountains of the Lord. The first is Mount Horeb, and the second is Mount Sinai. Both were in the wilderness, located in the wilderness of Sin. Now, the children of Israel were in want of water, and so God told Moses to strike this massive rock on Mount Horeb, which is just before Mount Sinai, the same mount on which the burning bush appeared to Moses. Moses obeyed, and out flowed from that rock living waters for the people of Israel. Now, that is the first act of God in the wilderness of mercy. It was an act of mercy that preceded the law, which was given later to Moses in the book of Exodus on Mount Sinai. And so we see that the mercy seat in the holiest of holies is above the ark, which contains the law. Mercy trumps the law. Now, we know that we have stones of remembrance in our lives. We know that we have markers that tell us where we are and where we have been. But there is one marker, one stone, one great rock that never moves, and that rock is Christ. He is the ancient landmark, and He is also the old paths wherein our fathers walked. He's the Ancient of Days and the Alpha and Omega. So that's what Toplady was referring to when he wrote the words to Rock of Ages. I'll begin reading now from my devotional entitled The Old Tree and the Mule. Reading from 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 4. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ." End quote. This past Sunday, I lingered on the lawn of my second church in Ozark, Alabama, to chat with the older members. This church is very traditional and old-fashioned. Most of the members exceed the age of 65 years or even 70. The church itself is almost 200 years old. It was organized by Scottish people who immigrated there in the 1830s from Agora, Scotland, and formed this rural community of Arguda. As I surveyed the lush, green Alabama surroundings, I noticed a huge tree near the edge of the churchyard, which seemed to be ancient. When I remarked on the antiquity of the tree, an elderly lady told me this interesting story about it. When this lady was a small girl, about 60 years ago, horse-drawn conveyances were still quite common in the rural South. In those days, the lady told me, there was an older man who rode his mule-drawn surrey to church every Sunday. He would tie the mule to the old tree, which seemed to the woman to have been of similar appearance even those many years ago. After several years of driving to church and tying the mule to the tree, the old man failed to attend services one Sunday. The old mule, however, did not forget. He appeared at the church at the appointed time and went to his accustomed place of peace and safety under that massive old tree. After service, when the men of the church attempted to take hold of the mule and deliver him home, he would not hear of it. The mule went berserk and would not leave this familiar place. Every time the attempt was made to move the mule, he would wildly resist so that no one dared go near him. The mule insisted, after all of those years of standing under the tree, in remaining this last time at this shade of peace and comfort. Finally, in desperation, a rifle was brought and the mule was killed. I realize this is a sad story to tell. I admire the character of that old mule, however. It is sad because of the mule's attachment to the one thing in his life that never changed, and in the last moments of his life, he refused to move from it. But this story is also inspiring because we are reminded that there are anchors in our lives which never change, which remain steady and unyielding to the demands of a fickle world. We, from our youth, have learned of the ancient rock which does not move. We have been taught to build our lives upon it. And when the rains and floods descend, our building thereon will remain fixed and weather the storms of life. That rock of ages followed the children of Israel as they wandered in the wilderness, and that rock and fortress abides with us daily as we are challenged by change and circumstance. Yet that rock remains steady, strong, and unchangeable in the face of the storm. Perhaps we can learn from the sad story of the mule that some things are worth the dying rather than to move from them. The Holy Scriptures, the love of God, the love of family and country are all things worthy of our immovable devotion. During these uncertain times of spiritual and social decadence, shall we be blown about by every wind of doctrine? Or shall we stand on that ancient rock and fortress, which is Christ? Thank you, and God bless you.